Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on News X. Well, let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes U.S. brokered talks in Geneva next week are substantive, but adds Ukraine is too often asked to make concessions. He accuses Moscow of delaying progress by changing its lead negotiator as U.S., Russian, and Ukrainian delegations prepare to meet in Switzerland. The U.S. Justice Department sends lawmakers a legally required letter outlining redactions in files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists high-profile names referenced in the records without detailing the context, including individuals who may have had no direct contact with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Britain and European allies say Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is killed with a poison linked to dart frog toxin, who 2 years after his death in a Siberian prison. UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper says only the Russian government has the means and motive, while Moscow dismisses the claim as an information campaign. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she believes President Donald Trump still wants to own Greenland despite recently toning down his threats. Speaking in Munich, she stresses Greenland is not for sale as security tensions between Copenhagen and Washington continue to rise. Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi says U.S. military intervention could save lives and urges President Donald Trump not to spend too long negotiating a nuclear deal with Tehran. The exiled son of Iran's former Shah tells Reuters he believes the clerical government is nearing collapse and says an attack could accelerate its fall. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to begin a two-day trip to bolster ties with Slovakia and Hungary, whose conservative leaders, often at odds with other European Union countries, have warm ties with President Donald Trump. Rubio is to discuss energy cooperation and bilateral issues, including NATO commitments. According to Australian government announcements, Australia will spend $2.76 billion to advance construction of a shipyard to support nuclear-powered submarines under the 2021 AUKUS Defence Pact with the US and Britain. The agreement is Australia's largest ever defence investment. According to Taiwan Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung, China said that China is the real threat to regional security and is hypocritically claiming to defend UN principles of peace in response. He said this in response to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the Munich Security Conference, as Wang Yi warned that some countries are trying to split Taiwan from China. Now we start this hour with Taiwan. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Ling Chia-lung has sharply criticized China's stance on security, accusing Beijing of hypocrisy in its claims to uphold United Nations principles of peace. Lin's remarks come in response to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's comments at the Munich Security Conference, where Wang has warned against efforts to split Taiwan from China and accused Japan of stoking tensions over the island. In a statement, Lin has emphasized that Taiwan's sovereignty has never belonged to the People's Republic of China, whether under historical facts, objective reality, or international law. Lin has further rebuked China for its actions, stating that while Wang boasts of adhering to the UN Charter, China's military provocations and violations of UN principles, including the threat of force, exposes its hegemonic behavior. China's military has regularly staged exercises near Taiwan, with the latest round of mass war games conducted in December. Taiwan, which views itself as a self-governed democracy, rejects China's claims, stating that Taiwan's sovereignty should be determined by its people, not Beijing. Taiwan's opposition also counters China's argument that the island was returned to Chinese rule at the end of World War II. Now for this, we welcome former Ambassador KP Fabian. He's a former ambassador, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at this, it seems like China and Taiwan are both pushing for totally different narratives. Do you really think that Taiwan can long-term keep their stance about this? And is there any success story of two system, one country, which China claims to give to Hong Kong or Taiwan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me put it this way.
Yes.
China, meaning Beijing, is going to get Taiwan sooner or later through military or other means. There cannot be much doubt about that. But having said that, I want to make a point about the argument put out by the Taiwanese foreign minister.
Yes.
You see, the mainland China and Taiwan was one country. Then what happened was that in 1949, Mao Zedong said China stood up. That is, in the Civil War, Mao Zedong was able to defeat Chiang Kai-shek. And Chiang Kai-shek ran away and he established himself in Taiwan. And at that time, Mao Zedong did not have the military wherewithal to chase him there. And in any case, it was clear that America might intervene if Mao Zedong had done it. But to take forward, in 1971-72, Nixon visited Mao Zedong, and later, much later, there was the principle of one China, which was enunciated by Kissinger, who said that Chinese on either side of the Straits of Taiwan believe that there is only one China. That was a very clever formulation by Kissinger. He said that both of them believe. That is, in other words, the so-called Republic of China in Taiwan, sort of had sovereignty over the mainland China, which of course is fiction. And the other is that the mainland China, that is Beijing, PRC, had sovereignty over Taiwan, which also is fiction. But, in diplomacy, such fictions work. But when it comes to geopolitics, it's my view that if Xi Jinping, as part of his legacy, were to take over Taiwan, as I said, militarily or otherwise, nothing much stands in his way.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. And Ambassador Fabian, so nowadays, today, who is adhering by the rule? Is it only the small nations? What's the state of international law set by UN? How dangerous is current world order?
Well, let me take you back to history. Thucydides, he wrote about 2,400 years ago, 24 centuries ago, the strong do what they want, and the weak shall have to suffer. Now, historically, we have been trying to change it, but we have not fully succeeded, and I am afraid under President Trump, we have to recall the words of Thucydides. He gets away, not always, with what he wants to do by using American might. But as you know, when the European Union threatened to use its bazooka, that is endangering America's exports to the European Union amounting to $170 billion, then Trump climbed down on Greenland as well as on tariffs he imposed on the 7 European Union countries plus UK.
With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Fabian for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for the next discussion as well. Now moving to US, the US Department of Justice has sent a letter to lawmakers regarding the redactions in the file pertaining the convicted late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. According to reports, the letter, required by law, includes a general description of the types of redactions made and a list of notable people mentioned in the files in any way. The letter also includes an extensive list of high-profile people or politically exposed persons referenced in the files even if they had no interactions with Epstein or his long-term associate Ghislaine Maxwell. The letter, sent to the leaders of the Senate and House Judiciary Committees, does not state in what context a name appears. Now we welcome back former Ambassador KP Fabian. He's a former ambassador, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for staying with us. Now, as you know, in our last discussion, you just quoted the 2,400 years ago, the strong do what they want. Now, how is this Jeffrey Epstein case exposing all that in terms of political elites, the double standards, the blind eye that, they get by doing all these things that that is still coming out from these Epstein files?
Well, the survivor victims have put out a statement saying that the true, those who committed the atrocities, they are still protected and almost unnamed. Now, the Justice Department, as you mentioned, has written that letter, but it has also explained separately that it did not come under any pressure from the White House as how to go about the task of redaction. But my view is that, of course, I could be wrong. My view is that the redaction has been done primarily to save President Trump. And till now, they have got away with it because, as you know, in other countries, in Europe, in UK, Lord Mandelson had to resign, and UK, the former Prince Andrew is in trouble, and in Norway, some former prime minister had to resign and all that. Elsewhere, in France also, and also in Belgium. So all that is happening across the Atlantic. But in the United States, nothing is happening because, let me put it this way, those European democracies are more responsive to such public acknowledgement of such outrageous behavior. Whereas in the United States, President Trump has a much thicker skin and he has strong support too. His supporters, MAGA and others, though some of them are worried, but mostly the Republicans still support him. And as of now, he can get away with it. But once again, it is my guess that we do not know whether he can get away with it forever. You can fool some people for some time, you can fool all people for some time, but you cannot fool all people for all time, said by one of President Trump's distinguished predecessors, Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Ambassador, also, because also of Jeffrey Epstein case, and also not just that, but many other reasons, we know that President Trump is losing his popularity or support, as the polls show through media reports. So how do you think this crackdown on not on Jeffrey Epstein case, yes, so the lack of transparency which Jeffrey Epstein case has exposed, right? Do you think this is enough, this attitude from Trump administration is enough for him to gain back the voters that he's been losing? What do you think would be the strategy for him to gain back some trust or the support as the midterm elections are upcoming in November?
Well, let me put it this way. There is a hardcore support system base for President Trump. That hardcore will always remain with him. But to win, he needs to have not only the hardcore, but also others. Now, as regards others, I'm afraid his support, and I'm glad, his support is weakening, and it is possible that in November this year, he will meet his Waterloo. to recall what happened to Napoleon.
Right. And as Ghislaine Maxwell, she denied to testify when she was called last week. So how do you think that, how could this move be affecting the broader credibility and perceived impartiality of Congress investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein files?
But she is right legally, because under the US Constitution, you do not have to say anything which might incriminate yourself. But she is morally wrong, and I hold she is morally bankrupt. It would have been better for her to admit to what she has done and seek pardon.
Right.
That would have been more honorable.
Yes, indeed. And also, what are the broader political implications if members of Congress are seen as lacking the authority to enforce disclosure laws in the Justice Department?
Well, let me put it this way. Every democracy is supposed to be self-correcting. As you know, Montesquieu's famous separation of powers, executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, each has its own area. And if the executive overreaches, then it is for the judiciary and the legislative to rein in the executive. Now, in the case of the United States, well, some actions being taken. As you know, there is a Congress move telling Trump that he cannot impose tariffs on Canada. It is not complete because it has to go to Senate and all that. So there is some move. But basically, I would say that at this point, America, the oldest democracy in the modern world, has proved that it is incapable of self-correction.
Yes, so as you rightfully mentioned, this is the oldest democracy, and now we see the lack of accountability among many figures, and especially the fact that the crime is so heinous, like prostitution of children. So how do you think this is weighing down on this overall image of even US democracy and the legitimacy that as foreigners we had about US and its image?
Well, America's reputation as a democracy is falling, and falling, at an accelerated speed under President Trump. Now, that is unfortunate because, we all need democracy. We want to see democracy prevail everywhere. Only thing is that we in India, we do not claim to export democracy. But it is our hope, it is our plea that democracy should spread, and that nominally democratic countries like the United States should be genuinely democratic. But then again, we do not wish to preach to America. President Trump is a very, difficult person to handle. So we should be diplomatic, and officially we should not make any statements. But we in the media are free, and we are entitled to, and it is our duty to speak out.
Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to thank Ambassador Fabian for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on to Iran. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht-Ravanchi in an interview has said that Iran is willing to explore compromises to reach a nuclear deal with the United States, provided Washington's engagements in discussions about lifting sanctions. Takht-Ravanchi has emphasized that Iran's readiness for negotiation hinges on the U.S. addressing sanctions, which remain a key issue in the ongoing nuclear talks. The minister's remarks come amid rising tensions over Iran's nuclear ambitions and the geopolitical implications of its relations with the West. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Nilofer. We'll go back to our read for this. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht-Ravanchi in an interview said that Iran is willing to explore compromises to reach a nuclear deal with US. Now we welcome our guest, Ms. Nilofer Ara. She's an Iranian women and human rights activist, joins us live from Turkey. Thank you very much, Ms. Ara, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation in Iran, if you know any reports that's coming in from Iran and Iran's protests? And also, do you think that this is genuine that Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister has said that Iran is willing to explore compromises?
First of all, hi.
Hi.
Second of all, I feel like, no, it's not genuine because it's been over 10 years like that they are doing these kind of conversations, and through a lot of opinions of the analysis, maybe they are buying some time. But the good news is that like the diplomacy is still open and they are willing to talk. But they want they are a little bit unlogical, because as far as we know, the United States of America are saying that we want full control of your nuclear weapons and nuclear energies in Tehran, but like Arabchi and Tehran are not willing to give them such a thing until they will give them some kind of a guarantee that they will limit these kind of things that they are doing now, because they are suffering from economic problems right now in Tehran so much. So I don't see this kind of conversations that guarantee a full negotiation or something like that. And it's been like over 10 years that Iran is trying to reach a negotiation, an agreement like the one in 2015, but I don't see that's coming.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Ms. Ara, how do you analyze the current popularity of the regime and versus the popularity of the exiled Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi?
I can tell you from our own informations from our friends in Iran that they are buying people for them, the IRGC. They are buying people for them to go to protests for like the Islamic Republic of Iran. And genuinely, I don't think there are so many people that they support this regime, because this regime is almost done. They have already played every card possible, and it's time for them to go. But this is their last moments, and they are doing everything before getting drowned into the water, if you know what I mean. So I think no, they are not winning absolutely, and they have already failed, and this is their last breaths. But on the other side, the people that support Shahzadeh Reza Pahlavi, which we call Shah Reza Pahlavi, of course there are too many people, and of course yesterday in Munich and in LA, there were too many people. There were like gathered around 5,000, if I'm right. I don't know exactly the statistical things in this kind of things, but I think there are lots of people over there, and we have seen some kind of videos from there. And also Reza Pahlavi did go to Munich, and he had a really emotional speech for everyone, for every Iranian that was there, and there were lots of people supporting him and supporting the people of Iran.
And you know, we also, of course, it's my knowledge about the fall of Shah's regime is limited, but I know some reason that some repression of the people was involved when the Shah's regime fell. Do you think Iranian people right now have forgotten or forgiven why the Shah's regime in Iran fell more than 40 years ago?
I mean, like, this is not their fault. this is not Reza Pahlavi's fault. Back there, like 47 or 48 years ago, people were brainwashed. And back then we didn't have internet, we didn't have Instagram, we couldn't get connections, so most of the people were brainwashed. The last revolution was about religious. This revolution is about something else, is about freedom, democracy. They are not connected to each other. At this point, I think Reza Pahlavi should be the one to forgive the people of Iran to what they have done to his family. And this is a little bit, I think, sad for everyone that they have seen their own parents that was like involved in such a revolution. It was an unfair revolution. I mean, if you look at Khomeini's photos, Khomeini's educations, but they all of a sudden wanted to choose religion over everything. So, they were just all brainwashed because it was no internet and no enough education for them to know a lot of things.
With that, I would like to thank Ms. Nilüfer Ara for joining us from Turkey and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on. Protesters are marching through downtown Los Angeles to denounce the Iranian government's recently deadly crackdown on dissidents while urging global solidarity with the Iranian people. Waving large Iranian and U.S. flags, the demonstrators carried banners with messages like "Long live Iran" and "The Islamic Republic killed my brother," as they chanted for freedom and justice, drawing attention to the regime's human rights abuses and the plight of those impacted. The protests in Los Angeles is part of other rallies worldwide, with the largest gatherings including Munich and Toronto on what is known as the Global Day of Action. Let's listen in.
We're here to protest against the Islamic regime of Iran.
And why is that important to you?
Because there was a massacre about a month ago, and the regime has been so unfair to the people. So that's why we're protesting.
Now we move on to Mexico. Massive protests broke out in Zacatecas, city of Mexico, after workers at a silver mine owned by Canada's Wizla Silver Corp were kidnapped and killed. People from multiple age groups marched holding the banners to mourn the victims and speak out against extortion. Authorities found the bodies of 10 victims in Sinaloa and believe that they may have been mistaken for members of rival gang. According to reports, the protest ended at the municipal palace, where people demanded the government to take sincere action against the violence.
Pues el objetivo es levantar la voz por la paz, por seguridad principalmente.
Ya se vale, porque somos gente trabajadora, somos gente honesta, somos gente derecha. Nos falta mucho. Aquí estamos manifestándonos de una manera silenciosa, pacífica, y luchando por la justicia de todos.
Now we move on. As astronomers have discovered a planetary system that challenges current theories of planet formation. The system, located about 117 light years from Earth in the Lynx constellation, includes a rocky planet that formed outside the orbit of its gaseous neighbors. Traditional theory suggests that planets closer to a star should be rocky, while those further out should be gaseous. However, this system defies that, showing a rocky planet beyond gaseous ones. The system observed with the Keops Space Telescope includes 2 rocky super-Earths and 2 mini-Neptunes. The fourth planet, with a mass 5.8 times that of Earth, may also be habitable. Scientists think it could have formed later in gas-poor environment or experienced a catastrophic collision. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.